Hello everyone, Ace here, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about military history, and an absolute meme of a vehicle from it, specifically the Rhodesian Pookie. But to understand its story, I do believe it's necessary to provide at least a little backstory on the conflict that created it, namely the Rhodesian Bush War between the apartheid Rhodesian government and multiple socialist guerrilla factions, namely ZANU and ZAPU, who were backed by China and the Soviet Union respectively. That said, it should be noted that Rhodesia itself was facing a strict arms embargo throughout the entire conflict, and thus relied heavily upon both the South African and Portuguese governments, with the latter dropping support in 1974. By the mid-70s, the most dangerous weapon that the Rhodesians had to face were the landmines being used by ZANU and ZAPU, which had been given to them by their communist supporters. In response, the Rhodesian government desperately needed vehicles that could withstand the blasts of these anti-tank mines. But because of the arms embargo, they were forced to produce their own, and given Rhodesia's lack of industrial development, these were naturally all improvised vehicles made from whatever parts they had on hand. And while these vehicles did indeed prove durable and did protect their crews, Rhodesia still needed an efficient means to locate these landmines, and thus the Pookie was born. Using the parts of hippie vans as a base, with South African supplied landmine detection pans mounted on the sides, and mounting an armored capsule high off the ground for the sole crew member, the Rhodesians sought to create an improvised mine detection vehicle that was simultaneously heavily armored enough to protect the crew member in the event of a mine detonation, while at the same time being light enough that it wouldn't set off the mines in the first place. Already a seemingly difficult challenge. However, the Rhodesians then decided to take some cost-cutting efforts on their design, because nothing guarantees success quite like cost-cutting an improvised mine detection vehicle. However, the Rhodesians were actually rather smart in how they accomplished this, as the main means of cost-cutting in this regard was to fit the vehicle with used racetrack tires from South Africa, which were not only dirt cheap but also purpose-designed to be quickly and easily replaceable. In addition to that, however, it should be noted that these racing tires were wider than most types of tires out there, which reduced the amount of pressure that the Pookie exerted on the ground, making it even less likely to set off a mine. Yes, you heard me right. The cost-cutting measures that the Rhodesians took on the Pookie ultimately increased the vehicle's survivability, as well as its effectiveness in its intended role of mine detection. And on that subject, let's talk about how exactly the Pookie detected landmines, which was accomplished by simply running over the said landmines, allowing the landmine detection pans to pick them up. And amusingly, this actually worked exceedingly well, as the records available state that the Pookies never set off a mine, never failed to detect a mine, and were able to do this at around 80 kilometers an hour, which appears to be a speed record that is to this day unbroken. Not bad for a completely improvised vehicle. That said, ZANU and ZAPU were quick to respond, and thus the Pookie did become a prime target for ambushes. And so the vehicle now needed to be armed. And upon taking a lengthy look at the materials available, and presumably forgetting to take their morning dose of Prozac, the Rhodesians then proceeded to unleash the full fury of their autism by taking a bunch of shotgun barrels, sawing them down, and then arranging them so that they fan out, enabling the Pookie to saturate a wide area with buckshot almost instantly. There were multiple variants of this particular anti-ambush weapon system known as the Spider. However, the one most typically fitted to the Pookie offered a 270-degree firing arc. And as hilarious as this particular idea sounds, it not only worked, but was effective enough that it gave the Pookie a fearsome reputation as being a dangerous vehicle to try to ambush. In response, ZANU and ZAPU began to use IEDs to try to take the Pookies out, which proved to be far more successful than ambushes. However, the design of the Pookie proved to be so durable that throughout the entire conflict, only 2 Pookie drivers were ever killed, one under unknown circumstances, and the other via an RPG during an ambush. And of the actual number of Pookies that were built, sources tend to vary, but most estimates suggest the vehicle's production run was somewhere between 67 to 77 vehicles total, of which 12 were knocked out in combat. It should also be noted that the South African police appears to have utilized the Rhodesian-built Pookies as well. But interestingly, that is not where the story ends, because in the late 90s, the British decided to copy the Pookie design. Yes, you heard me correctly. This improvised mine detection vehicle that was produced under utterly desperate conditions in a nation that was not well geared to do so proved to be so incredibly effective that decades later the British, one of the wealthiest and most technologically advanced nations on Earth, copied the design and actively used it in nations such as Afghanistan. With the impressive operational history of this particular vehicle, one has to legitimately wonder why more people haven't heard of it yet. But hopefully this video may help start to change things in that regard. And of course, for those curious, I will of course be leaving links in the description below to the various sources that were used. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.